Hello and welcome to the Sunshine Cathedral. The Sunshine Cathedral is a different kind of church where the past is past and the future has infinite possibilities. And with that, we invite you to come and worship with us here on Sunday mornings at 9 and 10:30 a.m. at 1480 Southwest 9th Avenue. Now, I invite you to come in and worship with us here at the Sunshine Cathedral.
From the wisdom of Fanny James. Since we have learned to know God as spirit, as love, as life, and as truth, it is easy to understand how love may be everywhere at the same time, for it is not a person or a shape, but a presence that fills every place, a very great God indeed. The Bible says that in God we live. Hence, we know that we live in love, life, and health every moment. You can see that the only place where evil might be is where God is not, and there is, in truth, no such place. We must see that this is true when we know God's omnipresence. Paul says, "Neither give place to the devil, evil, for unless you and I give evil, negative beliefs, a place in our thoughts, it has none. Such thoughts cannot touch us except we forget God's presence and power." In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Our second reading is a reading from the Gospel according to Matthew. When the Pharisees heard that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together, and one of them, a lawyer, asked him a question to test him. "Teacher, which commandment in the law is the greatest?" Jesus said to him, "You shall love your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and first commandment, and the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets." In these human words, God's voice is heard.
Well, we had our Halloween show last night, and it was a lot of fun. There actually got requests today to, in lieu of a sermon, do my chair number, my Ruth Brown If I can't sell it, I'm going to sit on it number, but I chose not to. Don't have the energy for that today. And then, so between now and next Sunday, Halloween will happen, and then All Saints' Day is the first, and then when we gather again on the second, it will be All Souls' Day. And so those 3 days happen back to back, and quite intentionally, in fact. In ancient European paganism, this is the beginning. October 31st was the beginning of a new year. And during that night, the curtain between the worlds was thought to be the thinnest. And so people from the other side might come back and visit. And so there was all kinds of, it was a memorial of the dead, really. Well, the church co-opted that, adopted and tweaked that a little bit, and so made the next day, All Saints' Day, a memorial of martyrs who had died for the faith. And eventually someone says, well, you know what, my grandmother wasn't thrown to the lions, but she was a good person, I miss her. And so we came up with All Souls' Day. Let's just remember everybody. And so October 31st through November 2nd, it is a time to remember. And you're going to hear some more songs, a couple more songs today, more in the Halloween vein. We'll get to more All Souls and All Saints-y stuff next week. But it's all the same thing, really a remembrance of loved ones who live on in our hearts, as well as a celebration of life here and now. And so maybe because of that, maybe this time of remembering is why I sort of feel compelled almost to open up the vault and dust off an old Aunt Gladys story. I want to just kind of feel her with us today. So you may recall that my grandmother and her older sister, my great Aunt Gladys, they liked to go to church together. And my great Aunt Gladys would do the driving, so she'd stop and pick up my grandmother, and off they would go to church. And one morning, as they were driving, it was, in fact, I think the last time my great Aunt Gladys drove them, they were driving and running a little late, so my great Aunt Gladys ran a stop sign. And my grandmother, kind of a nervous Nellie anyway, but she didn't say anything. She's like, well, we're running late. She's just in a hurry. She wants to get us there on time. And then they ran another stop sign. And my grandmother's like, okay, we're not running that late. If she does it again, I'm going to have to say something. I mean, better, I want to get there, I want to get to church, but not for my funeral, right? So, and sure enough, my great Aunt Gladys runs another stop sign. And so my grandmother says, Gladys, for God's sake, we're going to make it. It's okay if we're a minute or two late. Why are you running every stop sign? And my great Aunt Gladys said, Mother of God, am I driving? So, little blast from the past there. Actually, I've been thinking about departed loved ones a lot lately, because as time goes by, I have more of them, and you do too, I'm guessing. And so I'm remembering that my grandmother, both of my grandmothers, in fact, they were children of the Depression. And my paternal grandmother, she had a little bit more privileges than a lot in the rural South during that time. She had a couple of dresses. She had one for every day and one for Sunday. She was stepping in high cotton. They had plenty of food, and so they were doing okay. My maternal grandmother, her family was much larger and much poorer, and so they really struggled, and as so many people did during the Depression. Well, what amazes me about those people whom I love and who were so formative in my life is they got through those times. They faced one day after another. They loved their families. They hoped for better days. They did the best they could and celebrated every victory they had along the way. Somehow, even when things were overwhelming, they didn't give up. Not only did they not give up on living, not only did they not give up on just getting by, but they didn't give up on happiness. They didn't give up on joy. They didn't give up on hope. They just didn't give up. Every day was a gift, and they celebrated it, and they enjoyed it. They had Sunday dinner. Dinner might be cornbread and beans, but they had Sunday dinner. And they had family time, and they had Christmas. Christmas gifts may have been homemade, but they celebrated time together. And I think that most of us, hopefully, don't have things that hard anymore. But I think we've lost something. I think those of us who've had it a little bit easier have forgotten how to just have joy, how to not let the circumstances define how we experience life. Sometimes we get so focused. Lynn, just take a break. People are pulling their hair out there. I haven't even started on the notes. Just sit back up in the technology booth. The people who have experienced hardships, sometimes we have been conditioned to focus on that. We have been conditioned to complain. We have been conditioned to give up. We have been conditioned to almost celebrate the disasters, to how are you doing? And we just immediately rattle off the long list of what's terrible. Not that those things aren't all true, but we never even get around to maybe the shorter list of what's great. And if it's a shorter list, all the more reason to give it more attention. It needs more. The tiny struggling thing needs more attention to grow, right? And so we have survived so much. We have survived wars. We have survived conflicts. We have survived the AIDS crisis. Not that there is a cure for AIDS, but people are living into old age with HIV now, and we certainly know how to prevent it. We have so much more to be hopeful for, and yet sometimes it seems like people have so much less hope. What is that about? Why is it that with so much more to be hopeful for, we have so much less hope? I think we could take a lesson from those in the era of the Depression who just realized, every day is a gift. We don't know what tomorrow holds. We don't know what the end of today holds, but we know we woke up this morning. We know we have each other. We know that happiness is a choice. We know we have a song to sing. We know we have a story to tell. We know we have memories to share. We have so much. No matter what it is we don't have, we have so much. Let's celebrate what we have, and that will get us through those rough patches. I think that's what the readings today, and really the readings we've been hearing all month, have been about. It's about remembering that God is a loving omnipresence. Now, that isn't something that we can manipulate. That isn't something that if we just use the magic words, then everything will turn out the way we want to. If that's the way it works, then I weigh 175 pounds living at the Dunkin' Donuts. But what is truer is that I weigh a little bit more than that, eating not nearly all of the delicious foods that I would normally enjoy. And so we can't control everything, but we are in complete control of how we engage everything. The people going through the Depression, they didn't have any control over the global economy, but they had complete control over their spiritual economy, how they would spend their spiritual resources, how they would choose to summon strength and hope and joy and form togetherness and share what they had, even if it seemed to be so little. They knew it was more than someone else had, and they could pool their resources and they could get by. Are you facing something today that seems so overwhelming? And you're tempted to give up. You're tempted to give in. You're tempted to let that be your narrative. And how much joy does letting that be your narrative bring you? And if it doesn't bring you hope, and if it doesn't bring you peace, and if it doesn't bring you joy, it's not good enough. Now, I'm not saying that if we just focus on the positive all the time, and if we just choose to be happy all the time, that all the problems in life will go away. That's not my experience anyway, but we can keep them from winning. I remember during the worst of the AIDS crisis, I prayed every day for a cure. Most days I still do. And I prayed for people at their bedsides. I prayed for people as we unplugged their life support machines. I prayed for cures. I prayed for treatments. I prayed for miraculous healings. And some of those people I prayed for are still with us today. Some of them on this dais today. Others went peacefully into the next experience of eternal life. Not everything happened exactly the way I wanted to happen, and yet I noticed during that crisis, people getting up and facing the next day and finding something to laugh about and smile about and be happy about, something to share. The people who would volunteer at MCCs, who would volunteer at food banks, who would volunteer at testing centers, they were often people who had to take medical retirement. They were often people whose weight was in the double digits. They were so frail and sick themselves, but they had something to give. And so they got up and they gave it. And they made their life count for something. And they enjoyed something in every day. And they were part of something important. And some of them lived longer than they were expected to. And some of them are alive today. I remember telling you a few times about a volunteer at a church that I served at. His brother had already died of AIDS, and he wasn't far behind him, or so he thought. He had single-digit T cells and double-digit weight, but he showed up twice a week to answer the phones, and that was just at church. The other days of the week, he volunteered other places. I don't know how he got out of bed, but he did it. And his goal, he was hanging on. He wanted to see the millennium. He was going to live to see the year 2000. He didn't mind if on January the 1st at 12:10 a.m. of the year 2000, he was ready to go. But he had a goal. He just wanted to see the new century. Well, this was in 94, 95, 96, and of course 97 is when the great breakthrough drugs came out. Well, I didn't see him for a long, long time. I assumed that maybe he didn't make his goal. Until one day, I joined a new gym. I've joined several in my lifetime. And on the floor of this gym is a trainer, very buff trainer, that seemed a little familiar because it was him. In the year 2001, not only had he lived to see the new millennium, he had lived to experience it in a whole new way. He had a new career. He had a new job. He was now, instead of volunteering, he was making a living doing what he was doing every day. It was an absolute miracle. But even before the medicines and even before his health rebounded, he'd already experienced miracles just by learning, even in his condition, he had something to give, something to share, something to celebrate. When we know that God is an omnipresence, a loving presence, a love that lets no one go, a love in which we all live and move and have our being, a love that is the source and substance of our life, the ground of all being, then we have to take comfort, whatever we're facing, because we know we are one with this universal, eternal, all-inclusive, unconditional, loving presence. So whatever we are facing, we're not facing it alone. And whatever is happening, we are not totally powerless. There is a story about Oscar Wilde, a patron saint in our community, that Oscar Wilde, in a hotel room, I believe it was in Paris, and on his deathbed, his last words were, looking at some rather garish wallpaper, saying, "One of us has to go." If you have just one breath left, that can be your breath. I'm going out with humor. I'm going out with joy. I am going out choosing what I think about this and what I say about this, going out. We are never completely powerless. We are never without hope. We are never alone. And once we get that, we can face anything. Jesus, borrowing from the Torah, says the greatest commandment is this: just love. Love God, love people, love yourself, love others as yourself. Just love, love, love. God is love, so the one commandment is to express God, which is to express love. That's it. That's religion. That's spirituality. That's faith. That's prayer. That's the whole ball of wax. That's the full Monty, but with clothes on. That is the full, that's everything, right? It's just love. It's just love. And so if our religion if our spirituality, if our traditions, if our sacraments, if our text help us love ourselves more, love life more, tap into the power of love more, they are serving us well. They are good tools. But if they are causing us fear or shame or regret or causing us to hate ourselves or others, they are not doing their job. And we need to make some changes on how we practice religion and spirituality then. Because this is it. To love God, to love ourselves, to love others. That's the whole thing. Because, and this is why that is the commandment, because love is what God is. And love is this universal presence. It leaves no one out. It lets no one go. It is the source and substance of each of our lives. And if we focus on that, that is communion, union with the divine. And that's what prayer is. So whatever you are facing today, your prayer isn't to necessarily try to dominate the situation or to just get by or to sanctify the problem. I've actually heard that prayer, that something, that the suffering will be redemptive and something, and that somehow someone will come to God because I suffered with such courage. No. I mean, if it brings you joy, go ahead. I'm not trying to steal anybody's joy. I just haven't met anyone who said, and that made me really, really happy. But whatever you're facing, your prayer can simply be, I am in the presence of God. I am in God's heart. I am in God's loving embrace. God cannot and will not let me go. And so God and I are facing this. I have the entire power of the universe with me as I'm facing this, which means I can do this with grace. I can do this with dignity. I can do this with strength and courage. I don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I know that ultimately I am okay. I am eternally safe because God is love, and it's in this loving presence that I live and move and have my being today and throughout eternity. Now I'm going to start my sermon. No, kidding. Don't worry. Oh my God, I got to go to the bathroom. I need a cup of coffee. No. That's what Fanny James was saying, though, when she said, unless we give negative beliefs a place in our thoughts, they have none. Such thoughts cannot touch us except we forget God's presence and power. Can we move through the agony of grief? Because we all have experienced loss, and so grief happens. Can we face a medical procedure with hope and courage? Can we recover from a financial hardship? Can we go back to school? Can we forgive ourselves for a past mistake? Can we love again after being hurt? Can we begin a new career? Can we learn to manage a phobia? Can we learn to get rid of or get over or reduce a bad habit? Can we recover from the pain of the past? If we believe that we can't, then we have limited our possibilities already. But if we believe that we can, then we have increased our possibilities because we have reminded ourselves that God is always with us and God is love. And so this loving presence in and with us, living itself in, through, and as us, keeps us from ever being alone. And so either we will face the problem, we will cure the problem, we will reduce the problem, we will eliminate the problem, we'll go around the problem, we will destroy the problem, or we will laugh in the face of the problem. One of us has to go. But we have choices, we have options, and we always are at choice over how we are going to respond to whatever is at hand. Because as Johnny Coleman says, I am the thinker that thinks the thought that makes the thing. We could restate that as, I choose the thoughts that become the beliefs that influence how I experience life. If we choose to think consistently until it solidifies into a belief that God is love, God is omnipresent, God cannot let me go, so I always have the power and presence of love with me no matter what is happening around or even to me, then we have the power to have hope and peace and joy in any moment. And with that power, we can even make the situation better. But we don't have to depend on the situation getting better for us to feel better about it. The greatest commandments are just love, because love is what God is, and we are made in God's image. So when we love ourselves, love others, know God to be love expressing through us, we are worshiping God with our whole hearts and with our whole mind, and we are loving ourselves and our world around us. The Bible says love never fails. It says, whatever is good, think about these things. It says, God is love. It says, there is no fear in love. Perfect love drives out all fear. And so, by focusing on the omnipresence of divine love, and knowing that for God to be love and for God to be omnipresent means that God's love is always with us. We can't be separate from it. We cannot be alone. Therefore, we can face all challenges, and we will even overcome a lot of them. We could boil all of this down very simply to just this. God is love. When we love ourselves and others, we are praying. And prayer as love in action, as God in motion, brings comfort, peace, and joy. That's the message. That's the gospel message. Love God and your neighbor isn't just a platitude encouraging piety and civility. It's a way of understanding prayer and opening us up to prayer's deep reserves of power. Jesus' brother said, "The passionate prayer of a faithful person avails much." The prayer that avails much is the prayer that knows that we are one with God, that God is love, and that divine love will never let us go. And for somebody today, this is the good news. Amen.
Hello, I want to thank you for joining us for worship today here at the Sunshine Cathedral. Again, if you're ever in the Fort Lauderdale area, please stop by and worship with us on Sundays at 9 and 10:30 a.m. If you'd like to find out more about the Sunshine Cathedral, about our resources, or about our books published by our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins, or if you'd like to make a donation to the Sunshine Cathedral, please visit us at www.sunshinecathedral.org. Until the next time, may God continue to richly bless you on your journey.